In the rant that this is attached to, Roberto 8AG said that if you get me talking on politics, you'll see that I am in fact religious and a patriot. It depends on your definition of religious. Roberto and I have been over this and agreed to a certain degree. I mean, I give aid and comfort to his particular perspective on this, that everything's, all belief systems are religious. I think that's fair to characterize his view that way. There's more details, but um, and I too believe that every logical argument starts from principles that are unproved. If you can prove those principles, then you do so with other principles. So there's always principles at the head of an argument that you've assumed because they feel right or whatever. You've chosen to believe them, prior to actually having a proof. Now you think they're demonstrated in the real world, or they make emotional sense or something. And that's not a bad thing. That doesn't mean that they're groundless. So for example, if we say, should we put people in jail for harming children? We might start that argument from, well, it's our duty to protect and raise our children. So yeah, we should put people in jail that want to harm children. But but that is our duty would not have been proved. Now you could probably prove that. Maybe you could draw that from our relation and the dynamics of survival and species survival. And but again, you would base that on principles like, we want the human race to survive, which again is, would not be proved. You would have to go prove that. So there's always something like that. Now, if you call that religious, fine, I would accept that. But, it's not dogmatic, and that's the thing. If religion means a dogmatic faith, then no, because skeptics are not going to have a Bible. We're just going to have regular books, commentaries, that serve at best as a milestone. I mean, if somebody writes a really representative book on the state of skeptical inquiry, at best it's a milestone. It will not be the Bible and then we just start using it, because that's not how skeptics work. And also, I don't expect other people to agree with me fully. I expect them to agree with me most partially. And so again, that's not dogmatic. But if you want to call it religious, or you want to call it faith, that's fine, because it is like a faith. I mean, the difference is that I expect that the things I assume will eventually have to be subject to proof. So when I make one of these assumptions of a principle that sounds good, that I haven't proved yet, I do know that either I have to go prove that principle eventually, or that someone else will come along and disprove it. And that's why these assumptions are hypotheses and hypotheticals. They're taken for the sake of argument or for the sake of a particular inquiry. Now, in terms of my politics and patriotism, I've explained my patriotism. I love the state I was born in. I love the state that I live in now. I love the nature of it and the people of it, and the same for my nation and my continent and my planet, and including the biosphere. So that's a foundation of my politics, but I'll tell you just a little bit more. It's come up before, but I haven't talked a lot about politics, and I have a lot of political views, and I'd be happy to talk more about politics if people are interested, or if I on my own get interested in talking about politics more here. But I will say that, okay, in short form, I think that the world is a half step past feudalism. The imprint of Roman, European, and American ambitions for empire strongly upon the world. It's an imprint that involves slavery. You can't use the system we have in this world and just make slavery illegal. You'll still have essential kinds of slavery, because the system requires a component that acts like slavery. I think every race on earth is, as far as I know, guilty of heinous crimes against humanity. There's an idea of religious neurosis, a particular philosopher, that kind of gets to this. It's like, why did all these religions do these crazy things? Like, think it was a good idea to kill young virgins and throw them into a volcano, or kill them on the altar. Isolated human cultures. It gives the idea that this is human nature, that this kind of crazy fanaticism is human nature. But it's also human nature to see how crazy that is. So evidently it's also human nature to at least have to have footing for changing that. I mean, if we can see that we don't like that, then it's not totally our nature. If our nature was totally to embrace that, then we'd never overcome it. We would still be embracing it. We would just like it, and we would think it was right. But there's something not quite right to it. And if anything, it's probably more the nature of a ruling class. When you get that kind of power, you go crazy in that kind of way, more than the nature of all the citizens, which I don't think are as inclined without being prodded and manipulated through propaganda to do these crazy, hateful things all around the world. Be that as it may, all the cultures have. All the victim cultures have their own history where they victimize someone else, and if there's any exceptions, those are the special cases which you might construct. You might find some village that was oppressed by the Europeans in Africa and never oppressed others. And we will never know whether it's because they didn't have the opportunity, didn't contact those people, or if it was something truly inherent in their philosophy or their way of life. So, I'm progressive because I believe in progress. I'm a libertarian because I think we need progress towards individual liberty and sovereignty. And we need to build systems where there is a respect for individual sovereignty and then sovereignty of groups at more or less every scale, from the individual all the way to the whole world population. I think that we need all to admit the mistakes of our cultures. I think we need to take responsibility for them. As I said, my family, turns out, never had slaves, but we probably benefited indirectly. And I've had cousins. When I say my family, I'm talking about the genealogy that we have researched in my family, which of course is direct ancestors. So I've had probably cousins. We didn't go off and fight in any Indian wars that I know of. Direct ancestors, but probably again, cousins. And even if we didn't, it could be argued that we benefited. So, I'm willing to take a certain kind of responsibility. I'm willing to take responsibility for slavery, the American Indian genocide, the Muskegee experiments, a lot of these things that when they happened during my lifetime, like the Iran-Contra scandal or this Iraq war, I oppose. I'll still take responsibility. I pay taxes. My taxes have gone into this effort. I cannot claim to be unrelated to the effort just because I'm opposed to it mentally. So, if I will take responsibility for those in some sense, but at the point where somebody points the finger like they don't have to take similar responsibility, then that's not okay. I'll take responsibility for America's woes in an international conversation where the British take responsibility for the British woes, both in the past and in the present, and the present state of the people that they've wronged in the past, the present state of India or China or Africa. And if they can do that, then I will do that. But it's not going to be a unilateral thing where I just take on the crimes like we're the demon of the world in my particular culture. Because as bad as America is, and I think this is just from luck because we're a young country, but luckily we never have had a system where it was okay to kill virgins to impress your God, and so we're lucky. We missed some of those crimes, and we slightly missed communism. It was closer than a lot of Americans realized in the late 1800s here. And I think we closely missed, extreme fascism as well. And, some of that's luck, some of that's our character, whatever. I'm not a fan of American exceptionalism, quite the opposite. We're not exceptionally bad or exceptionally good. Though, of course, you can say, well, we're doing more wrong right now than, say, I don't know, some random small country in the world. But I'm just saying that's somewhat incidental, that it's not a metaphysical, oh, these are bad people and they do bad things. It's more like, power corrupts. We've succumbed to some of the same corruptions that previous powers have. We have also avoided some of the corruptions previous powers have. And we're really in the boat right now of all bringing this to the next step as a world, and we can't get there if we want to stick with this old school, old Europe kind of mentality of, you killed my great-great-great-great-great-grandfather 500 years ago, and so now there is no compromise. That's just not going to work. And so, I don't know. If that's patriotic and religious, then fine. Just understand what those mean when you apply them to someone like myself.